Hello to the very first take of the Dead Duck Film Club podcast. I'm your host, Sebastian, and I'm joined today by Mark, my co-host. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Today we're talking about No Other Choice, a movie by Park Chan-wook, the latest movie by Park Chan-wook, which we've both seen. So let's just get stuck in, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's go for it.
Here we go.
Before we do, how are you on Park Chan-wook in general?
Love him to bits, I think. You know, when you think about, I wasn't too hot on Decision to Leave, I guess. I thought it was a good movie, but like, fine. I think the reason why I have a film club today is because I saw Old Boy and I was like, I need to show this to everyone. And when I showed all my, the people around me, I was like, I need to show everybody in Nottingham the Old Boy. And then that just kind of went from there. And then I watched his other movies, of course. And I truly love the guy. I love his sensibilities. And he's a little pervert, and I love him. He also made The Handmaiden, which is, so yeah, great.
Well, it's the reason that I asked, because you're showing Handmaiden very soon. And I feel like I enjoy all of his slightly crazier pervert films more than I enjoy his slightly more restrained ones along the Decision to Leave sort of line.
Which ones are you thinking about?
I'm definitely thinking of Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, which is a phenomenal film, and then also The Handmaiden is one that I absolutely love. Old Boy, I guess, gets a lot of love because of the twist. That's kind of something that really gets lodged in people's mind, that ending. And I'm not sure how well it would hold up on a second viewing. I wonder if I loved that film because it was the first time I'd seen anything done like that, and I saw it when I was young and impressionable, but I wonder if it would be the same now.
Well, for Old Boy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely holds up. For a second viewing, I'd say so, because I've done it many times. And you still get stuff, especially the second viewing where you know the twist and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. It's kind of like a car crash that you're witnessing that you can stop at any moment, but you don't because you're very excited about it.
Which reflects a lot on Decision to Leave, to be honest, on a second viewing, now that we both have seen it a second time.
All right, so IMDb logline. After being unemployed for several years, a man devises a unique plan to secure a new job, eliminate his competition. It's amazing how succinct that is, but it does cover what the movie is about. It's really good. Yeah.
He's only unemployed for, like a year, I feel?
I believe we'll get through to it, but he is unemployed for he hopes for 3 months and it ends up being a year. And he is employed in other ways, obviously through a supermarket job, but no, I think at the end it's 3 years or so. It ends up being I can't remember, but let's just go with 1 year. So I want to start by getting you to guess the rating, actually. So we'll start with Rotten Tomatoes. I'm hoping you haven't seen any of this, but
I have not seen any of this.
So there's 100+ verified ratings on the popcorn meter. Sorry. What do you think the rating is for No Other Choice?
Now, this is split into critics and audiences. That's how Rotten Tomatoes works. Is that correct?
Yeah. And I can absolutely. Let's do that. Let's go for the
because I'm going to assume this to be more of an audience film than a critics film. I don't know why. I feel like the pulpy nature of it and the twists and turns it takes is going to really appeal to a general audience. I'm going to assume. So if I was to take a shot at it, I'd say a solid 95% on general audience, and then critics maybe 90.
All right, not bad. Audience is 94%, so you were 1% off, and critics is actually 98, so they are more excited for it.
So the inversion. So okay, incorrect.
The inversion, but it's also interesting to have a look at his ratings throughout his other movies. The Handmaiden has 96% critics and 91% on general audience, so it's still very high. Decision to Leave, 94% critics, 84% audience. Piercer, 94% critics, 72% audience. So very, very high stuff, right?
No Place is not him, dude.
No, it's Bong Joon-ho. It's Bong Joon-ho, isn't it? Oh, it's weird. It's showing up on freaking Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Rotten Tomatoes is officially racist, as confirmed by the Dead Duck Film Club.
They all look the same. No. Okay, cool. Can you guess, before we move on to the rest, can you guess the IMDb rating right now? Is it 20K ratings on IMDb? And it can really fluctuate. What do you think the IMDb rating is for No Other Choice?
This is going to be high because of the kind of broad... Yeah, I'm going to call that a 7.7.
7.6. That's really good.
God damn, that's not bad.
Well done, man. Well done. How was your...
Of those, do you agree that you are surprised to hear that critics are more into it than audiences?
Yeah, a bit. Well, actually, I don't know. What you can see it both ways, right? You can imagine a reality where the critics are like, "Well, he's made bangers after banger, hence this is a banger because I have the movies behind me to kind of like I will find the banger whatever he makes. I will find the banger in there. I can see that, and an audience at the same time who might not know of his other movies and seeing this just as movies by itself, it being a bit lower doesn't necessarily surprise me. It's like, well, yeah, maybe not. Maybe they don't love it as much. It can get, I think it's a bit like a Parasite where audiences could love it, but it's also a bit of a critics movie where it's like, it's digestible, but also there's a lot of stuff happening. And especially for
Yes.
a foreign audience with no other choice, we've got a lot of names there, and a lot of people, and you have to remember a lot of things. It can be, I don't know, for an audience, maybe that's a bit more difficult.
Lots and lots of Parasite overlap, as I'm sure we'll get into with this film.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Where did you watch this?
Well, first time we saw it together in the cinema, which was, I mean, that was a fairly. I was surprised by how little it seemed to be sort of causing laughs and stuff in the audience that we were with. It's quite a funny film for the way that it was going over.
On a second watch, actually, I realized that as well. I was like, wow, when we watched it together at that event at the ICO screening days, I think it is. I was thinking it was actually not that many laughs, not that many woos or whatever. And when I watched it by myself, I was howling for some reason. I thought it was the most funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I found a lot of details on the second viewing. So you've watched it twice yourself?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just jump into it. What do you think about the movie?
I mean, you almost right out of the gate have to sort of recognize the Parasite overlap, don't you? Because it's so clear where a lot of those potentially influences are coming from. And I think that I am slightly harsh on this film in a way that I may not have been had I seen it before Parasite, because it feels a little bit like we have Parasite at home. Mm-hmm. It feels a little bit like it's trying to do some of the stuff that Parasite was doing, and it's definitely taking a really broad approach to issues of wealth inequality and male fragility in that sort of post-patriarchal world, but it doesn't feel like it's doing it as incisively as Parasite was, for me personally. I'm thinking about elements of Parasite. For example, if you take we'll just go straight into spoilers, right? There's no concerns with that.
Yeah, no, let's do it.
Let's get stuck in. So you've got the same sort of protagonist, or protagonists in the case of Parasite, where you have very sympathetic protagonists who are also committing crimes up to and including murder eventually, who are very, very sympathetic, and we understand who they are, but then there's some complexity to them. But then in Parasite, you have that with the side characters as well. You have that with people who could be considered antagonistic characters. That infamous line where they say, they're not that they're nice and rich, they're nice because they're rich, is what the poor person says of the rich people in the Parasite family. But It turns out to be more than that. It becomes undercut, and you see some complexity in their marriage, and you see that it's not sort of this immediate sort of easy ride for them, and there's more to them than just being the rich people. And then in No Other Choice, you don't really have that. In No Other Choice, the rich characters, the antagonistic characters, kind of are just assholes. That's really all there is to both the American company at the start of the film that lays everybody off, and then the sort of more tech-driven layoffs that happen towards the end. There's no effort to give those characters the kind of complexity that you get in Parasite. And so it's very difficult for me to treat this as a standalone film, because I'm just seeing those comparisons quite clearly. It's very much a follow-on from the sort of ripple effect that Parasite had.
Okay. So where did you land on it? Did you like it?
Yeah, I like it. It's funny, and it's dark. I like any story that's going to be sort of dissecting wealth inequality from a crabs in a bucket sort of perspective.
Yeah.
That analogy of you put one crab in a bucket and they'll escape, but if you put multiple crabs in a bucket, they'll drag each other back in, and one of them will be able to get out, which is very much that protagonist in this, where if it was just him alone, he'd be okay, but it's him fighting against the other people who want these jobs.
Yeah.
Eventually taking them down. Pathetic and frustrated bureaucrats really speak to me, and I don't know why. I find that to be a very compelling archetype. And once the plot starts to get derailed into the first killing, so he lines up these three people that he's going to murder, who he considers to be his chief threats for a future job opportunity.
Yeah.
And at the first hurdle, the first guy who he starts trying to kill, he immediately gets derailed into like obsessing over his life and trying to help him in a very unhelpful way, sort of seeing problems in his marriage and thinking he can fix them, or that he can go and sort of deal with the wife because he's projecting onto her. And as he was getting derailed into that, That's when I thought the film was going to go in a very different direction to Parasite and become something else, where it, instead of being that competition that he's creating and that he's buying into, that he's going to actually empathize with the other people and he's going to try to help them in terrible, terrible ways. But it does, over the course of the film, he actually does then go on to the other two people on the list, and it does kind of become what it always seemed like it was going to be.
Right. Well, okay, but then I thought we'll get to the ending in a second, actually. I'd like to go through the movie with you. I've, like, not scene by scene, but I've got like some notes based on timelines as I was watching it. I took some notes and I thought there's some really interesting stuff in here. On my side, I absolutely adore this movie. It's actually my number one for 2025. I get the connections to Parasite. I didn't connect them that literally, I think, where you kind of make a straight line. I kind of wiggle a bit around them to connect them together. But I do think like it's a masterclass in storytelling also, as well as in technical ingenuity. He just cannot stand still, this director. He wants to make unique things every time. He wants to try new things, I think, and nowhere as much as in this movie does he try new like cinematic tricks. The amount of like interesting shots that are in this movie that are lovely to watch and entertaining, and there's just so much to talk about, and I really, really like it. There's this opening scene where it's like the idyllic world, right? And you see the house. You see the house, which is kind of a character in the movie itself, this house. And Park Chan-wook mentioned in many interviews that the house itself, the house itself was something they looked for way before the movie started. It was way before the movie started that they looked for this house all over South Korea, and they found it. And it's a house that was a symbol, basically, of like, this is the modern lifestyle, the middle class dream, basically. This detached house, and they were popping up all over South Korea in the 30s. Oh no, sorry, the 70s, I believe, and they were all like kind of cookie cutter, and they made these the same all over, and they were marketed as French houses, which they have got nothing to do with France, nor in their architecture and their style, but they were selling this kind of European lifestyle. So it was like a huge marketing thing. And then Park and his team added the brutalist waves that you see that are like on the side of the house, like they're connected, but yeah, they're a bit to the side, just to make it like an amalgamation of like all these different styles that are fake, that they don't make sense to each other, but they're just marketing, basically. And anyway, love the house, love that tidbit. And you see this is like the perfect family. It's like nearly an ending to another movie. Like, you could imagine that first scene being the ending to a movie where the guy's trying to get his life together, and at the end it all works out.
Especially when it opens with him having his triumphant monologue about solidarity in the face of corporate apathy. It feels like that's his catharsis, only to be immediately undercut.
I love that. So he gets eel. They're making their barbecuing eel at the beginning, and his wife is like, "Wow, they just love you, don't they?" And he's like, "Yeah, they." Without me, he's like, yeah, they're like me because I work hard, it's worth it. And here are some shoes, and isn't this perfect? And he has this moment where he gets everybody to come to the entrance of the house, like in the garden, and to have a mindful moment, basically. And he's like, let's all hug. And everybody's like, oh, fine. And he's like, this is perfect. I'm living the dream. Now, unbeknownst to him, everybody who received eel is getting fired, which is most people. And it moves on to that scene, right, where the factory hype speech is what I call it, where he figures out that everybody else but him is getting fired, and he has to kind of has to do some solidarity, talk to these Americans, and he does this huge speech, and everybody's there. Well, he has three people looking at him smoking cigarettes, and he's like, you're only here because you wanted to go smoke cigarettes, whatever. And then he actually goes to confront the American, and the American just immediately says, sorry, there was no other choice, and we're off to the races.
He even looks at him.
Exactly. He can't tell his family either. He cannot do it.
And that's the sort of the male fragility that you have tied in with his character. The therapy session that he then goes into, where he's trying to get it drilled into him that his self-worth isn't tied to his employment, that is a different element to this kind of a film. And when you're talking about the way that class is interacting with this film, it's very clear that Parasite is coming at this from a working class perspective, whereas no other choices kind of moved on to this wealth inequality also hitting the middle class, who had some level of comfort and are now having that taken away from them as well by wealth sort of trickling towards the 1% at the top. And so it's interesting to have that as a separate issue. I was recently listening to Gary Stevenson, for any UK folk, talking about older stories where sort of you had heroism not tied to wealth in that kind of Robin Hood or Charles Dickens way, where even the sort of the poorer people could be considered to have dignity and heroism, because at a time where wealth inequality was so stark, it was kind of readily apparent that personal success doesn't it's not determined by your actions, but rather your start in life. And so you can still be a person who has that kind of self-worth in them, even if you aren't being successful. It's really interesting to then see that completely changed in a society that tells you that, oh, if you work hard and you'll get ahead and it's all going to work out fine for you. It's all about how much you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That then suddenly, like, the inverse of that worldview, that suspect myth, would be that the logical extension is any fall from grace is your fault, which is sort of the mindset that gets drilled into Mansu with his firing at the start of the film.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting how he approaches, as you said, like, from the middle class perspective of being dragged down back into something they've worked so hard to crawl out of. And then you move on to the therapy session, as you said, with the tapping, which is just so funny to me. Like, I've been to a lot of therapy, and tapping is a thing, and it came from Asia. And like, it's just so funny that they're applying it to all these people that have just lost their job, and they're all hyping themselves up to like tell their family that they've lost their job, and they're tapping, and you've got this woman in the middle. She's going through these cue cards, and they all have to repeat after each other. In 3 months, I will find a job. He eventually calls his wife, who's having her tennis lesson, and her partner is the dentist, the doctor. And he hypes himself up to talk to her also and tell her. And so he tells her, and he says, "Listen, I'm going to find a job. Don't worry about it." And she sits down and she's like, "Okay, yeah, we can do this." I have to say, the wife, absolutely dynamite actor, dynamite. I think she was amazing. And also as a character, she's ride or die. From the beginning to the end, she's on his side. And I love that. If he just let his wife handle this in a way, or support him fully, there wouldn't be a movie. There wouldn't be these killings. Like, he can't. No. Yeah, he just doesn't listen to her.
It's the mindset that he's imbued into himself, that he has to be the man and he has to take charge. 100%. And it's important that he is successful in a way that society deems success. When she is then later in the next scene or so talking about cutting back in their lives, giving up the tennis lessons, giving up his daughter's music lessons, maybe selling the house and moving to a smaller place. All of that those are options that don't include murder. And they never occur to Mansu. The option to just scale back and to accept the new reality never occurs to him.
No, not at all. He can't fathom the idea of giving up the house, which we'll get to in a second. I love the next scene because it's the scene where he gets an interview thanks to a friend, and the friend's like, "My Chinese boss will ask you what your weak point is. Like, find something good for that." And he gets to the interview and the sun is in his eyes the whole time. And it's sort of silly comedy, but it really gets to me. And he's unfocused. He's tapping his leg. And the boss at the end goes, "So what's your weak point?" And he says, "Can't tell you. The one thing I can't do, I can't tell you." And it ends right there. I thought that was so funny. And he leaves the interview, and you see in the lobby, there's another one of his colleagues that's tapping, because he's like also getting to a mindset where he's going to do this interview. And I think that's where, as an audience, you start to think there's competition here.
It's societal. Yeah, it's not something which is just that he is going through alone. And there's potential for there to be brotherhood in that. The unity that he is proclaiming to support at the start of the film is something that, again, it's an option that he could have fallen back on, finding unity in the people who are struggling alongside him, rather than back to that crabs in a bucket, gotta kill him.
They have this chat about the house needing to go, and they say Netflix has to go, and the older boy is like, "Oh." And so he leaves the table, and you hear the Netflix da-dum, which I thought was funny. Like, and the
second film on the Oscars shortlist from this year for international film that takes a shot at Netflix.
Which one's the other one?
Sentimental Value has got an excellent Netflix joke in it.
Okay, I need to rewatch that. Yeah, I think I remember actually now. But yeah, I think, what do you think Park Chang-wook was trying to say here with the, I don't, is it a jab at Netflix, do you think? He's like, everything has to go that's not essential, Netflix has to go.
I guess not so much a jab as sort of the different ways that this news is being received by his family. That he's talking about the house and the emotional significance of that. His wife is talking about the difficulty with their daughter who has autism and the importance of music to her, whereas the son is like, Netflix. It's the immediate the luxury, the entertainment is the worst thing that can go.
And that's when we get to see, there's this moment she says, and that's not the worst of it, the dogs have to go. Then that's obviously the worst, right? And
immediately
we see there's a Vietnam War certificate plus the gun, like foreshadowing here. We get to see it. And so you're like, what's going on? Originally I was like, oh, he was in the Vietnam War, but actually that doesn't make sense mathematically. It turns out is his dad. And on my second watch, I started building like a character in his father that I don't really know what I learned, but I do know more about his father that potentially led me to my understanding of who he is today. And I'll tell you more about that in a second. But then he begs for a job in a bathroom. He goes to, like, I think it's maybe Papyrus or one of the other paper companies. And he's begging in the bathroom. And one of the employees, who's actually victim number 3, comes into the bathroom and says, what's going on? And he points to the guy and he says, oh, just a second. And he shoves him out of the way. And he tells him, you should be ashamed. Don't do this in a place where people piss and shit, which I thought was funny.
Funny, but also there's an element of this, which is where I start to worry about, not worry, but where I have a little bit less appreciation of the film, is where there's so many points on the unemployed distress checklist getting hit in this.
Right.
Where you have the daughter with a health condition, you have the emotional significance of the house, which is really heavily lent on and then being taken away. You have a failed job interview, you have humiliating yourself in the bathroom, you have being emasculated by it feels like it's almost too perfectly ticking each one of these boxes and starting to feel a little bit too complete in that way. A little bit it reminds me of Joker, when you have the psychopath checklist, it has been like lives with his mom and loses his job, and just sort of going one by one through everything that one has in one of these films.
I didn't see it that way. I saw it more as look at what these people will degrade themselves to when they can't open their mind to doing anything other than what they feel like their existence relies on. Because a lot of these characters have other options that they decide not to take, because it's a sense of existence that they get out of their paper jobs. It's like, there's nothing else I can do. This is why I exist. And we actually, I made a note here that we meet the victims early on, which I didn't catch the first time. But when he comes down from his first interview, that other person going for the interview is actually victim number 1, and then guy pushing him in the bathroom, victim number 3. Yeah. So, I mean, fast forwarding a bit here, I think it's around here that the bonsai scene. So this is the first time we see the greenhouse. There's so many details in that greenhouse. First of all, you see him frustrated bending the bonsai tree, right, with the cord, the metal cord. And it's a bit like how he's trying to bend his life around paper. Like, he's willing to break things to make them in the shape that would fit his demands, what he wants. And up to the point where he'll break his soul, I think, in a way to get there.
Certainly starting from that position of his seeming dedication to workers' unity in one of the opening scenes, and to where it ends up, absolutely sort of breaking that any sense of morality that he seemed to have had, for sure.
Yeah, and he loses a lot of that, but at the same time, he does feel very human, and that's because I think the way he goes about killing people feels like the way he feels like he has no other choice. So if you and I had felt in our minds that we had no other choice but we had to kill people, what would that look like? And I found that relatable in a fantasy way. Like, this is also how I would do it.
But it definitely progresses. That I would say in the first instance, the first victim, rest in peace, it is so much more, he's trying to empathize so much more with him. He's trying to understand. He's trying to help. I don't know if he's trying.
I think he just does. He's just empathetic from the get-go. It's his human side.
By the third one, he's lost that entirely and is being extremely callous and cold-blooded about it in a way that doesn't really happen with the first and only slightly happens with the second. It's definitely a degradation of a film.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Yes and no. There is like on the third killing, there is a moment where we think it might go in a different direction, but it doesn't. He also, we have this famous plan scene. So this is the scene which is on the poster. He follows the guy from the bathroom under the idea that if I kill this guy, I can get his job, right? And so he follows down, and I think it's funny. He goes down the stairs following him, and then the guy at the bottom of the stairs picks up his phone. And so again, the worst murderer in the world, he just goes down and he's like, oh my god, and he just this, and then he pretends to be on his phone mumbling, and he goes back up the stairs, and he goes on the building. It's just really nicely shot. Also, he goes up on the roof, and he picks up the smallest pot. Yeah, he picks up the smallest pot, and he raises it above his head, and he looks down. And twice he goes back, puts the pot down, he's not going to do it, and he picks up a bigger pot until he picks up the biggest pot, and the water falls down on him, and he's like, this is the moment. What did you think of that scene?
I do find it kind of fascinating that that's what they've chosen to be the poster art in the way that they have, because on the one hand, it's an extremely climactic scene. It's with the moment where he resolves himself to this plan, and he realizes it's not just one person. He has to choose his victims carefully, and so it sets him up for where the rest of the film is going. But on the other hand, it's an extremely small moment, a funny moment nonetheless, to have then built all of the poster art, all of the advertising around.
You're right.
Kind of surprising. But that is probably the first moment that you have one of these shots that you were talking about before, this kind of incredible cinematography and especially editing in moments, the kind of transitions. But in this moment specifically, it's that the setup of that shot so that it can dolly down and then back up the stairs in the way that it does, and tend to feel so improvisational, despite clearly being very, very prearranged. It feels like you're with him on this terrible plan where you're just following down the stairs, and then, oh crap, I have to pretend to take a phone call. I guess we're going back up. And it feels like the camera's reacting with him and doesn't know what to do.
Yes.
And to have that energy in something which is also so intricate and meticulous.
Absolutely.
It's incredible cinematography.
For me, that scene is kind of where he realizes this is crazy. This is also not going to work. There needs to be, if I kill him, more will take my place. I'm not number one. It's when he starts thinking, wait a minute, or I'm not number two, I guess. I'm not right on that list. And that's when he takes out an ad, right? He creates a red pepper, I believe it's called, red pepper paper company, because he has red pepper in his greenhouse. And it's a genius plan. He puts this out into the local paper, I think, something along those lines. And then he gets all these people he puts it out in the Pulp Man, or the Pulp magazine, which I love the design of that magazine. That's about paper. And it's just, the design of that front cover is just so good. And you have that scene where victim number one, actually, he's gross and he's living, and his wife is like, get a job or just figure something out, man.
That's why I thought the film was going to stop being about these murders once you see the difference between candidate number one as he presents on paper and candidate number one as he exists in reality.
Yeah.
That guy was never going to get the job. He was never going to compete with Mansu for that role. Not really. By the time that he shows up into any interview, he was never going to get it. He's the mess, that guy. And yet it's Mansu completely misreading who he is because he only has him based on the CV. And so actually then getting into his life, it feels like it's going to take that turn and just start to entirely become about this guy.
Right, yeah. And we do spend a long time with this guy, actually, compared to the other guys.
A long time.
So he realizes that he not only needs to kill he's an influencer also, as well as being employed right now. He needs to kill the guy who's employed, who was in the bathroom pushing him away. That's spoilers, victim number 3. And then, but not only does he need to do that, he also needs to kill 2 other people, because he realizes that he's number 2, 3, 4, I guess. He's number 4, and he needs to kill number 2 and 3 to get to, and then kill number 1 to get the spot. And we have this really fun montage where he's like gathering all the CVs together, and then he's rating them, and he's like, wait a minute, am I better than, is this guy better than me? Oh, this guy was Pulp Man 2017. I was Pulp Man 2018, which also Pulp Man, I love it.
There's something so great about it just being paper. Like occasionally you just step back from it and go, we're just talking about paper. It's not, I know that paper's important, but it's not some extremely high importance job that we're talking about here.
Yeah, but
it gives me Hot Fuzz vibes of like realizing, oh, it's just the Village of the Year award. That's all we're doing here.
Yeah, but to them, paper is life. Paper is their existence, and for some of us, like our hobbies or whatever, not our hobbies, but like some elements of our life can be just that. our life and our reason for being. And he goes to the victim number one's house. He goes to his house aiming to kill him, and he realizes there's cameras outside. And what's this? There's a guy. His wife's cheating on him with a younger version of him, basically, of victim number one. And he also ends up stumbling on victim number one and his wife picnicking. They go on a mushroom picnic, and that's when the empathy starts kicking in. And I mean, I guess the cheating part also, but that's when the empathy starts kicking in. And there's this really fun juxtaposition between like being an older couple reminiscing about the younger days, because there's a flashback scene. So they're both having this picnic. Victim number one's eating the chicken and is greasy, and they really focus on like how disgusting he's being, while she's reminiscing of falling in love with him in the theater and how he like led her out of like this electrical shortage that was happening, and it was all in the dark, and he helped her out. And she was like, I gave you my first kiss. I think she's an actress. She wants to be in theater, I believe, or she used to be in theater. She's trying to get back into it. And I was like, what is he trying to say here with this juxtaposition? And yeah, it's interesting.
But that's still, to me, the difference between who this man is on paper and who he is when you actually get to know him. That he's able to write this phenomenal CV, and that he looks like he'd be an excellent employee, but then he's eating like Dennis Quaid in The Substance, and he's alcoholic, and he's just sitting in that chair, and it's got some similar levels of the sort of the pathetic middleman that Mansu has, but sort of toned up so far that it seems like he definitely isn't Mansu's greatest competitor when it comes to this role. And as Mansu starts to learn more about him and starts to try to insert himself into the man's marriage and try to change what's happening in his life, it's a different direction for the film to potentially take. It's a different direction for potentially Mansu to take, to actually start to care more about the people in his immediate life, more about the people who have been screwed over by the system in the same way that he has.
Yeah.
Only for him to reject that possibility and to go all in on being a murderer.
Yeah, I don't think he's lesser than him or not as good as him or something. I didn't read it that way. I read it more as again, look how degraded this man is without his purpose of life. And Park Chan-wook in an interview said that this movie is also for directors. He says, this is what I am. If I wasn't a director, this is who I would be. Like, I mean, this is my reason for being. And I think a lot of directors will find themselves in this, which I think is interesting, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a way that we talk about our jobs. When you meet someone and you talk to them, you'll say, what do you do? And the framing of that question is, what is your job? But what do you do could be anything about who it is that you are. But it's a way that we perceive people as first and foremost being their job. And that's potentially coming from behind the camera in that case. If that's how Park Chan-wook is thinking of this film, that someone is meaningless without their job.
I think it's their purpose in a way when they're
okay, or that their job provides them with that purpose.
Yeah.
And
paper has fed me for 25 years. Remember they say that?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But that's not paper has given me purpose. That's paper has fed me. Those are very, very different things.
I love paper. It takes care of me, kind of thing. Yeah.
Or paper puts puts meat on the table. That's all all this is to me.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, so then we have a hilarious scene. Howling at this last night. The snake bite scene. So victim number one is out of the picture, goes back home, and then the wife is still there. And as she's walking away, sorry, I don't have the name here of the main character. I should know this.
Mansu is the main character.
Mansu, thank you. Yeah, there you go. You mentioned Mansu. Yeah, Mansu gets bitten by a snake, and he rolls off the down the hill. And immediately she helps. She's like, "What's going on? You've been bitten by a snake. Oh my God." And she says, "Raise your leg up." He's panicking. She says, "Raise your leg above your heart." And she cuts into his leg, and she's like, "I need to suck the blood out." And she's sucking the blood out, this is the pervert of Park Chan-wook, making all these sounds. And his wife FaceTimes him at the worst possible moment. And she's got all these sucking sounds while he's trying to say, "I'm busy, I'll call you right back." And basically, that happens. And then the next scene, I believe, is he goes back home or something along those lines. And he looks on his phone and it says, "Whatever happens, do not lift your legs up above your heart. Do not suck the snake venom out." And he's like, "God damn it." And oh my God, I laughed so hard.
It's brilliantly done.
Comedic genius. This is the first time we're talking. There's the bedroom scene with him and his wife, Mansu and his wife, and they have this the dance party is brought up. So they've been practicing dance for a while, and there's this dance party. She really wants to go to it, and we're reminded of that basically. At breakfast, she hypes him up, thinking he's going to a job interview, and she says, "Slay them all," which I thought was funny. And then he goes back for the kill for number one, but he only finds the wife and the cheater, so he leaves. On his way out, he crosses number one in his car, and he goes, "Oh my god!" And this is where he becomes ridiculous. He's like, "I have to intervene, otherwise that guy's going to find out his wife is cheating on him." Keep in mind, he's planning a murder on this guy, so why does it matter? But he goes
very
back.
Similar to the beat in Bruges, where Brendan Gleeson is preparing to kill Colin Farrell, then sees Colin Farrell about to kill himself and goes, "No, no, 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 you can't do that."
Yeah, this is not. No, no, don't. It can't be in this context. This can't happen.
Yeah, this isn't the right way.
And again, you got this. He can't stop him, so he calls him saying, "Hey, it's the job offer. You need to meet me over here." And he says, "That's fine. I'm just going to change first." And he can't stop him. He finds out his wife is cheating on him. He's distraught, whatever. And yeah, that sucks. But I believe that's the end of that scene. There's this amazing tracking shot actually from the house up to where Mansu is behind the rock. I remember that's the first time I clicked to me that he was trying interesting things with the camera there, because it's this really elaborate tracking shot. I really like that.
It's a combination of both, isn't it? It's both those incredible camera placement or tracking shot moments, as will come up shortly, the sort of the chase around the hairpin bend that you have coming through, but then also those transitions, those really, really creative transitions from one scene to the next.
Yeah, there's a scene with the shovel. He's digging number three's grave, I believe, and you see the wife sleeping, and he puts a shovel down, and as he pushes the earth up, the wife rolls over in bed, and I was like, wow, it's pretty. And it's not necessary, he didn't have to do it, but it's nice to look at.
It's incredible how hard it is to describe how elaborate these transitions are, because I was finding myself thinking about them and thinking, like, just using the words for it doesn't really get across how unbelievable that transition is and how smooth it is.
Yeah,
it feels like it was a single scene, and yet we've just sort of completely shifted from one moment to the next without even really noticing that it happened.
Yeah. I love those shots. So it obviously doesn't work out, and he's late to go pick up. No, he's not late, but he goes and picks up his wife, I believe. No, he is late. Is that now? Or maybe that's later. Anyway, it doesn't matter. A funny scene with the doctor. He's jealous. So he finds out that she's going to go work. Oh, we find out a bit earlier that she's going to go back to work for this hot doctor, this hot dentist that's obviously into his wife. And he immediately, this is the whole thing of like, just listen to your wife. Just trust your wife. He is so paranoid. He's like, he's like, well, I don't have a job. I don't have a worth. She's working for this dentist. She's
and that's
cheating
the fragile masculinity of it.
Yeah.
It's a combination of the wife can't be the breadwinner and that.
Yeah.
And if she has an attractive coworker, that's an immediate threat. These are this is sort of the way that he's perceiving threat is entirely based on status.
It goes back to like bending the family, like the bonsai, around his ideal life, which is what we start the movie as. And then when all goes pear-shaped because he loses his job, the branch breaks, and suddenly he's in a position that he doesn't want. My wife is working for a hot doctor. I have to kill people, and this is the no other choice part. Where he's like, if I want my life to go back, I have to bend it back into shape. And it's also connected to the toothache. He has a toothache during the whole movie, and he has multiple occasions to get that fixed, and he refuses because it's not the way he bends it. It's not the way he wants to bend this bonsai tree, which leads to a hilarious scene at the end.
Now, I have to say, it might be a little early to talk about this, but it fascinates me that there's one particular element of the film that hasn't come up yet as we're talking about this, as far through it as we are. Do you know what it is that I'm going to talk about now?
No, go for it.
Well, this is what the Mansu is a recovering alcoholic who has been sober for an extended period of time.
What do you mean? That's the description of the name?
No. The character is.
Sorry,
been the protagonist has been sober for as long as he has. And one of the things that I struggled to connect to this film on is how isolated that element of the film is, that we could be this far into it and sort of talking about his psychology in this kind of way, and how the film is dealing with his sense of self, and how he and where he puts value on who he is as a person, and for this to have just ultimately not really come up or intersected with the plot of Employment. There's a world in which you could have, let's say, made a direct parallel to like the facade of wealth being self-made, and then said similarly, oh, well, sobriety is self-made, and sort of treated both of those as equally incorrect ideas which are pushed upon people and made them to seem as if they aren't trying hard enough and it's their fault when really it's society. You could have made that parallel, but the film kind of never really does. His alcoholism seems almost like its own little pocket dimension.
Yeah, I guess at the beginning, there's also that scene where, now that you mention it, at the beginning of the movie, there's a scene where he goes to a whiskey bar because victim number 3 says, hey, don't degrade yourself like this in a bathroom. Here's a bit of money. There's a whiskey bar over there. Just go there and have a drink on me. And so that has actually a lot more weight now that we know that he's a recovering alcoholic. And he calls his wife, and his wife is like, are you in a bar? And he's like, yeah, I'm drinking this. Isn't this weird? Like, I haven't had a drinking like I don't know how many years. And she's like, okay. And he says, do you trust me, in that scene, actually? And she says, yes, of course I do. I don't know if she should, but yeah. And we will get to that part, actually, when we find out that he's a piece of shit. I mean, he's
been planning to murder someone for half an hour.
Yeah. So he goes back for the kill, and this is my favorite scene of the movie. He goes back for the kill for number 1, and he has he has a gun, and he's got an oven mitt on top of it. And he finds victim number 1, listening to music, and apparently there's a very, very popular Korean song. That song that is there, and I'm gonna blast it on repeat myself.
You know what? That makes a lot of sense. That's a very popular. I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I found that out too. So very popular song. He cranks the volume up. This guy is drunk out of his mind, so he kind of like, what's going on? And I think this is a confusing scene, actually, for like people like us who don't speak Korean, because the subtitles are purposefully, I think, subtitled wrong because of the idea that the music is so loud that what their understanding of each other isn't correct. Which I think was confusing for me in the first watch. I was like, is this what they're trying to say, or is this what they're hearing? And I think it's what they're hearing, which leads to like a confrontation, which is very confusing because he yells at him and he yells at the other one, and they can't understand each other. And I'm sure it's hilarious for Koreans, but for us, it's like, what? Is he getting his point across?
It works within the context of the scene.
Yeah, confusing. Music's a banger, though, I have to say. I love that song. And why it's my favorite scene, I think, is because he's pointing the oven mitt, and he slowly removes the oven mitts. Oh, not even slowly. He quickly removes the oven mitts, and to put some gravitas, because he's upset that he has to do this. And he starts yelling at him about, why didn't you open a cafe shop? Because your father-in-law was willing to like bankroll this cafe shop that you could have run with vinyls. You'd be amazing. Your music, you love it. Why are you making me kill you? He doesn't say it outright, but like, this is how he feels. And he removes one oven mitt, and there's another oven mitt, and then there's a Santa Claus, freaking glove, and then there's the cellophane. Now, a cool tidbit about this scene, Park Chan-wook explained that scene, although funny, that moment is meant to represent like the fact that Mansu has really thought this through, and he's not a killer, so he doesn't know how to create a silencer, but he decides, I'm going to put all these oven mitts basically on him. And tiny detail, which I will be rewatching this movie, that I need to catch next time, is that third glove is the glove of a Santa Claus suit that Mansu wears in a family picture that's in the house. So it's also like the family man aspect.
Okay. And then him sort of having this great plan, but then immediately removing it anyway because he's so tied up in berating this guy and is nakedly talking about himself. Clearly, he is talking about his own failures and transposing them onto
him. And the cellophane is because, well, for Park Chan-wook, in his words, he says it's because Mansu is so afraid that he's going to F it up that he has to cellophane his hand to the gun to make sure he doesn't drop it, which he ends up doing. And that's when the wife comes in. And this is the funniest scene, well, in the movie for me, where they have this really funny tussle, basically, and the gun goes off. He gets scared because he sees the wife, and the gun goes off into number 1's shoulder, and they have this tussle. And in the end, Mansu loses the gun. The wife has the gun. Victim number 1 and the wife run out of the house, and she shoots him. She shoots number 1.
She's actually the murderer in the first instance.
She is. And I think she's also upset, well, she's cheating on him and she's upset that he's this way. She says, actually, if I remember correctly, it's not the fact that you lose your job, it's the way you've dealt with it. And I don't think she realizes she's killed him. She's like, are you going to die from 2 shots? And she's in theater.
That's such a perfect juxtaposition of ideas that she berates him not for losing his job, but for how he's dealt with it.
Yeah.
And then says, what, 2 shots is going to kill you? Yeah. But she's not recognizing the struggle that he has to go through. And she's so dismissive of the way that he might react to, for example, being shot twice.
I think
losing his job.
I think it has to do with the fact that she sees the other options that he has and she's so frustrated. And he tries to explain it to her. He's like, your lips are as fine as the finest tracing paper or something along those lines. And he explains to her, and this is also to the audience, what paper means. And it's also a scene, that scene is a bit early on, the picnic, where Mansu relates to him and it makes it harder to kill him. Then he's running down the hill while she's maniacally trying to shoot him.
A phenomenal shot that captures the whole of that chicane down the hill.
Yeah. And he jumps in his car. He gets shot at. He realizes he's got 10 missed calls from his wife and he's out of gas. And it kind of leads to this hilarious moment where it's like everything's gone wrong. But in a way, it's gone in his direction because he hasn't had to kill number one. Number one's dead. Although she has the gun. And there's evidence of him being there at the house.
In his constant failure to be a decent serial killer.
That's just the beginning of him being really bad at it, honestly. Because the 10 missed calls have to do with the fact that he's missed a dance party, or he's missing the dance party that his wife, that's what the only thing she wanted was the dance party. And he goes to the dance party late and she's dancing with the doctor, which I actually took for the guy the number one's wife was cheating him with. I thought that was because he was young and pretty, and I thought that was him. But actually, no, I paused it again and I was like, oh, no, that's the doctor. And actually her whole cabinet, the whole doctor cabinet's there, dressed in Native American costumes. And he tries to go and like play around, like he tries to dance his way to her. And then he sees her laughing with him and they're both laughing, doctor and wife. And he's like, I can't now. This is just kind of solidifying his thoughts. And so he leaves. And there's this awful scene when he gets back home where he confronts her and he's like, he's in the cupboard and she's like, what are you doing? Why are you here? And everything's all over the place. And he says, well, I'm looking for the panties you have when we have sex, because if you're wearing them, you've had sex with the doctor. And then he kind of assaults her.
Yeah.
He absolutely assaults her saying, give me your pants and I will sniff them. This is Park Chan-wook being a perv again, but also confronting us with like something that I actually could believe happening in this kind of relationship. If they smell a certain way, you've not had sex, or you've had sex, and I know you've had sex. And she berates him, slaps him, throws her panties at him, and this is the moment where she's like, why are you doing this? And he's like, we need to communicate. We're not communicating. We're not being a perfect couple. And she says something along those lines of, what, you're the one that is gone all the time, that says he's in meetings and he's not in job applications. I FaceTime you and I hear these weird sounds, and you're drinking again. You used to be a drunk. You used to beat the shit out of my kid when he was 5. And you just, all of this hitting you is awful. And it's a really awful scene, but a lot of things comes to light. And again, the wife is in the right this whole time.
Yet she's also wrong, because he's not drinking. The pair of them are accusing each other of something that actually isn't happening. They're both not trusting in each other. That earlier scene of "Do you trust me?" sort of turns inwards on
drinking
itself.
Then, though, I believe he was having a whiskey at the whiskey bar.
No, he wasn't. That isn't it. Apple juice at the whiskey bar.
You're right.
He's not drinking. He doesn't drink until the end of the film.
You're right.
Spoilers.
Yeah, no, so you're absolutely right.
The pair of them aren't trusting in each other at this moment. This is a legitimate failure of communication in the marriage, in which neither one of them has actually done the thing the other one is accusing them of, even if in the past he absolutely has been knocking her kid about, which is horrendous.
It is. Yeah. No, good point. Thanks for bringing that up, actually. He does carry on. I think he says something along the lines of "you have to trust me" or something like that. But this is when we move on to victim number two, which was very interesting to me, but also kind of bummed me out the first time I watched it because I was like, "Oh my god, we spent an hour or an hour and a half on victim number one. There's two more people to kill. How long is this movie?" So
Well, no, so it's not a runtime thing. I recognize what you're saying there. Like, oh my god,
yeah,
is this going to be a 3 hour film as
yeah,
we're going through all this stuff?
yeah.
But it's not so much a runtime thing as it is a characterization thing. The
Mm,
remaining two people get burnt through very, very quickly because even after they're dead, we still have the rest of the film to wrap up.
mm.
And it doesn't have the same level of emotional depth as this really long process of him getting too involved in the man's life, of him transposing his own issues onto somebody else, him trying to fix them via murder. It goes in this kind of crazy direction where you have an inappropriate amount of sort of transference and empathy between the two people. And that's where it seemed like it was going in the other direction. And once that murder occurs and he moves on to number two, that's when you have the realization, oh, this is going to be what it was at the start, or what it seems like it was at the start. It is
Yeah,
going to be the story of him killing these three people. I'm not sure if you know this, but the book it's based on,
the
it's him
axe, I
going through
believe.
the axe. It's him going through seven people in the book. I actually haven't read it, so I don't know how that plays out. But God forbid that it would go that far and turn into a montage of him just sort of burning through seven different people that he kills
Yeah, I
along the
think it
way.
might get a bit old quickly, because the second killing and the second victim, it's the shoe store, right? And we have this. He has to psych himself up to kill this guy, and so he goes into the shoe store, and it's really sad. The guy's like trying to sell shoes like as well as he can, but it's obvious this is not what he wants to do. And the guy he's trying to sell shoes to walks away, doesn't come back, and then as Mansu's about to leave, he number two says, "Do you need anything? Like, this situation is awful, but can I help you with anything?" And he's like, "Well," and he starts talking about paper and about their jobs. Like, I recognize someone who hasn't worked, like just like me, and we're both men of quality and exquisite taste because we like paper, and it's about paper. And we find out that number two has a daughter also because she comes in and she says, like, "Can I go with my friends?" And he gives her a bit of money. He's like, "Yeah, no problem, no worries." And this is where you're like, "Oh, please don't kill this guy. Like, this is awful." And he says, "Well," Mansu says, "I'm looking for shoes for my daughter. They need to be shiny." He can't afford them, obviously. So he's like, "Well, listen, I'll come back with my daughter later. When do you close?" 7. 7's a bit early. And he goes, "Well, it takes me an hour to clean up. Don't worry about it. Just come whenever you want to come. And please buy the shoes with me so I can get a commission." So everybody's in financial distress, and it's awful to watch, really. But it's really another scene of like empathy, and another scene where you're like, "Mansu, my man, you don't have to kill everybody. You didn't kill the first guy." Actually, he does go back to the number one's victim's house and sees that she's burying him, and he manages to grab the gun and the coat, and he gets that all out of the way, doesn't he? Um,
But this is definitely, it's in this second person that he moves on from making any effort to empathize with someone who's in a very, very, very similar situation to him,
yeah,
that
yeah,
he could have been more supportive of in the way that he was attempting in his perverse way to be supportive of number one.
yeah,
And he makes no effort to do so the second time around. Once that seal's been broken, albeit that he didn't even kill the first guy, it's all about him trying to get back what he feels that he has lost.
yeah. And so we have the scene where also a beautiful scene where you have the green water on the left side and you have the red of the lighting on the highway or whatever road that is next to the beach at the ocean. And Mansu is pretending to be broken down because he knows this guy's going to drive this way, I guess, and he's going to intercept him, which he does. And because he's like, this guy's nice, he'll try to help. And he recognizes him and he stops and he's like, I'm a mechanical engineer. He saw that on his CV. Maybe I can help you. Of course, of course. Then before the murder, Mansu tells himself like, "There's no other choice. I have to do this," which he doesn't. But
Mm-hmm.
he just puts himself in that scene. And this is the kill that really affected me. Like I got really sad on this one, where he has the gun out and he's shaking, and he puts his hand in front of the man's face, of number two's face, so he doesn't see his face while he's shooting. Just cowardly. And number two tries to get away, and then the gun goes off and he dies. He dies, and it's a real bummer.
The moment of actual no going back.
And he leaves a gun casing behind. They really focus on that. And then we have this real weird tangent, which I don't know. Okay, is the movie better without this? I wonder, or maybe not. But there's a scene that we didn't mention, which is like there's people who come to visit the house. It's quite a funny scene. And they're like, wow, this will be great with my townhouse.
I guess it's similarly to what I was talking about before with Parasite, where these guys aren't really given any humanity or nuance in the way that the more antagonistic characters of Parasite are. These guys do just appear to be assholes.
Yeah, they do actually. That's a good point. And so we have this segment of the movie where the son and the son of the people who might buy the house, which are presented to us as assholes, go and rob the father's, the asshole father's mobile shop, so the phone shop basically, and they get caught. And it's interesting how there's this moment where Mansu gives a pep talk to his. I'm skipping a bit here, but Mansu gives a pep talk to his son. He just says, "Listen, we can't get away with this. Like they'll get away with. We can't get away with this. You need to tell them that it's not you. He did everything. That guy did everything." And the son's a bit of a just a teenager. So he's like, "I did it," or "I was the one who," and he's like, no, you didn't. You didn't do a thing.
Yes.
And he even mentions like doing a crime by yourself is really lonely. I want to be there for you so that you don't have to go through that, which is, funny considering Mansu is doing a lot of crime by himself. And this is also another toothache moment, by the way. And then he gives this really weird speech about his father or the grandfather who was in North Korea. No, sorry, not in Vietnam. He was in Vietnam. And he has a really bad pep talk, basically, about that. He was talking about, I can't remember, but anyway, it was a terrible pep talk is what I remember about that. But I think it works because you also have this really weird moment where the mom confronts the parents of the other kid, the asshole people who own the shop, and the father specifically. And she says, "You are going to drop the charges." And he's like, "Why would I do that?" And then she takes her sweater off and she's got her nipples out. And this is the Park Chan-wook, the pervert. So she's trying a very interesting approach to getting, making sure that her son gets out of it. And then Mansu comes and he's like, "Listen, I'm going to blackmail you," basically. And he does. He blackmails him with a bluff, right? Basically saying, if you don't drop the charges, I'll tell your wife that you've been hooking up with people at your shop while she's not looking. And I couldn't get a grip on like, is this true? Am I missing something? Is he bluffing? I couldn't figure that one out.
It seems like it's two different approaches to handling this situation, where the person who actually is in control, his wife who knows what's happening and is generally in control of their life at this stage, has this smooth, soft approach to try to threaten him.
Yeah.
Or try to use soft power, really. Yeah. Whereas Mansu comes straight in with, I'm going to go like toxic masculinity, massive threat straight out the gate. That's how we're approaching this situation.
Yeah. And he's proven right, which is also interesting because he's like, yep, that works out.
The whole film proves him right. But the entire film, everything works out for him. In this terrible, terrible society that we've built, Mansu is correct. This is actually you do actually have no other choice, and this would work.
I don't know if he's correct, but it does seem like he manages to bend the bonsai that is his life back into the shape that he wants.
And this is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Mansu's right, and that's a problem.
And speaking of bonsai, it's time to dispose of body number 2. So body number 2 is in the trunk, and he brings him to his greenhouse, and we're skipping a few things here, but basically he puts tarp. He does a Dexter where he puts tarp all over the greenhouse and he puts the body down, and you have this funny scene where he's about to use a chainsaw to cut the body, and it's a Makita chainsaw. I don't know. I've got a whole Makita suite of things, and I was like, oh, I don't have that. I'd love to have that. But he can't bring himself to it. He's gagging. He's like, I can't use this chainsaw. It's not me, I guess. And so he decides to bend him into shape, which I thought was an interesting take. Really, really cool.
It's a beautiful visual of the man tied up in his bonsai. I was horrendous as I realized where it was going. I was expecting some absolutely twisted distortion of a man that he was going to bend him into a truly unnatural bonsai shape. It's fairly, I mean, that's not how you would bury someone, really. That would be no use at all. You want him in a lovely little ball, and that's exactly how he makes him. So that makes a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense. Maybe we should all get bonsai, bent when we go to the ends of our life.
Yeah.
Might be a good shout. And that night, he buries him, but not before the kid. The kid's on the roof having a cigarette, and he sees something. One of the tarp falls, which I thought was really effective, by the way. I was like, a tarp falls for a second, and you see a leg, which makes you think, okay, the kid knows. The kid knows that something's not right. And then the police come over to investigate the next day. Now, this was also really fun because you get a recurring character in Korean movies. He's been in like every Korean movie I've ever seen. I don't have the name of the actor here, but he has a mole on his face, which is like makes him quite unique as an actor. This mole, and he's also an amazing actor, of course. And he comes, and I was really happy to see him. And they're trying to investigate, and they're asking him questions about the murders. He's like, wait a minute, there's a connection here relating to paper. We've also found this bullet shell, which belongs to a North Korean gun. And he says, well, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about anything. Although he does say something along the lines of, it's a shame they're dead or something like that. And the investigator says, I never said they were dead, which you think would kind of lead him to being brought into a police room or detective room at some point, but it doesn't.
In a straight telling of this that was less satirical, it would do, but we're definitely headed in a American Psycho direction, in a Patrick Bateman, in the absolution of Patrick Bateman sort of an ending.
Did you know, by the way, that the Park Chan-wook tried really hard to get this made in America? Originally, it was an American movie, but no one would bite.
I mean, that makes sense based on the book being American. It's more interesting to me to set it I mean, America has plenty of bootstrapping culture within it, but the infamously hardworking and toxic work culture of a lot of Southeast Asian countries, it makes a lot of sense to set this here.
Yeah, it does. It does, but it was not his first choice. So now it's time to kill number 3. So number 3 is the guy who has the job. And it's kind of like there's loads of little clues throughout the movie of who this person is. He has a wife who doesn't want to move to the countryside because he lives in this amazing log house, but he has nobody to share it with. And he's also an influencer, and he's like cutting wood, but he's also extremely lonely. And that is something that Mansu is going to use to his advantage, really, because he shows up at the guy's house and he's like, hey, you're lonely. Well, he doesn't say that, but like he says, hey, I can't remember what he says, but he said, hey, I'm here. And he knows he loves whiskey. So he's like, I brought the best bottle. Oh, do you want to have a drink? I love paper. Something along those lines.
Let's talk about paper and drink whiskey. Everything's going to be fine.
Exactly. And he brings them up. And then at this is where I think the pacing kind of got to me a bit. I do find this movie isn't long, but it's 220, so it's not short either. But I did think if I have any gripes with the movie, it's it has to do with the pacing. So yeah, he goes there and he's having this talk with number 3, basically. And he says, we get a bit of an insight on what's happening in the company, basically. And he says, I'm drowned in work. I need people. And this is where I thought it might go in another direction on the first watch, because Mansu goes, wait a minute. In his head, he's like, I don't have to kill this guy. Just get me a job. I can help you. We'd be a great team. Like, just recommend me. Da, 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 da. And then number 3 is like, yeah, I'll do that. Sure. And it's funny how nobody's helping each other with these jobs, really, except maybe Mansu's friend at the beginning. But like, they're in the same boat, yet they refuse to help each other or talk about it.
Crabs in a bucket.
So he then realizes, I'm going to have to do that. And no other choice is also mentioned again here, by the way. I've written that down. But I think it's number 3 who says it. So also, this is where he pretends to drink, which makes a lot of sense now that you've mentioned the apple juice. I thought he's just trying to stay sober, but actually he is just trying to stay sober. Like, that's the one thing.
He's actually trying to stay sober. Yeah, it's the last sort of vestige of his self that he's managed to cling to.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
there's an element of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, go on.
I was going to say that there's an element of that which is well handled. That it's the third killing is the one where he really truly loses himself, if that's the way that you see it. I would argue that he's done so a while ago. It's been some time, but you could handle it in that way. It does as an element in the film. His alcoholism feels very sequestered off into the corner and not dealt with in the way that so many of the elements are holistically dealt with.
I think you're completely right. I didn't even connect those dots until you brought it up. So you're right that the movie could do more with that potentially, if they wanted to, or just not mention it,
Or that.
Yeah. So yeah, and meanwhile at the house, the oldest child, the brother, explains to his mom that what he's seen. And so now we find out that the mom knows, and she goes out to start digging. Basically, she's like, what's going on? So she goes out to dig where Mansu buried the body. So we go back to the log cabin, and they are extremely drunk. Like, I cannot fathom this level of being drunk, because a second pint kills me usually. This level of drunkenness is something I haven't seen since my very early 20s. Shots on shots on shots, 2 bottles are down on the bottle. We're talking. So they had 1 bottle of whiskey each. I mean, I would be incoherent at this point in time. And
especially given we know one of them hasn't drunk in what 10 years or so.
yeah, but he doesn't drink it. To be fair, he puts it under the table. So okay, one is actually
he
fine.
drinks eventually.
He drinks eventually, and that scene is interesting. Bomb shots. So they go to the fridge, which I've done before. Very fun, but also will destroy you. Pint, shot of whiskey in it. This is funny because he kind of shows, like, number 3 thinks he's like this whiskey aficionado. He thinks he shows himself as like this guy who loves whiskey and he's like so cultured. But in the end, he puts the whiskey that's worth a lot of money into your average beer. He's a drunkard. He's absolutely a drunkard. And yeah,
this is the same as the paper. So when Park Chan-wook is saying you take someone's livelihood away from them and what do they have left? You take someone's passion away from them, what do they have left? That's who they are. Is this not the same as who they are with the paper? Because ultimately where this is going, plot twist, spoiler for the last scene, is that while Mansu does get his job back, there's nobody left. It's just him essentially being a night manager watching all the machines work. He's not having any hands-on sort of artisanal craft in making this paper. He's just watching the machines do it for him. And
well,
he has this.
Yeah, he never did. He had an appreciation. I don't know if he was a craftsman, to say.
I thought 10 minutes ago he was paper has fed me for 25 years. It's a beautiful thing, and it's
to him it is.
It's the core of my life. But is it though? Because he's just watching the machines. He's just drinking bomb shots.
Well, this one, yeah, and that will come back actually, as you mentioned towards the end when they eventually he goes back to his job, he wins, and he's so drunk that he pulls out his tooth. I don't know what he was trying to say there, but he pulls out his tooth, which is just him bending his life even more to his desired bendage, I guess. And he says, "What a relief." And then they go outside, they do a bonfire. He hates that he has to do this, and he actually says it out loud because he's drunk. He's like, "Ah, man, I've got to kill you, and I don't want to." And the other guy's just too messed up to understand what's going on. And the wife at the same time digs up the tree and she finds the grave. We don't see her finding it, but my understanding is that she finds it, she puts it back the way it is, and she FaceTimes him. And he doesn't put the camera on, but he's like, "Hey, I'm a bit busy, but I think I'm going to get a job now." And she's like, "Listen, I need to talk to you." And this is when she shines the most, in my opinion. She turns the camera, she turns the camera on and she says, "Whatever's happening, whatever you're doing, I'm doing it with you," she says. "We're doing it together," which is super undeserved, in my opinion. Like, he's been a complete asshole this whole time, out of control, chaos. And she goes, "Ride or die, whatever you're doing it, I'm with you."
Yeah, it's interesting that he hasn't seemed to have given her anything beyond that opening scene that earns such reverence.
Yeah,
and I'm not talking about his job or his money there. I'm talking about his behavior.
It's awful.
I'm sure he would be talking about it in terms of the money that he's not given her.
Yeah. He's not the provider anymore.
Mm.
So he gets home and he hugs his wife. She has a hard time hugging him. She's like, "I don't really want to hug you," because he's like, "Just let's do 1 minute." And she starts counting the seconds. She's like 59, 58. And he's like, no, please. And she hugs him back eventually, but runs away quite fast. And then, of course, he actually, it's kind of we're wrapping things up. He gets the job interview. So this is X amount of time later. He has a little porn stash and he goes into the job interview and it goes swimmingly, right? He's like, "Yeah, I realize things about myself and you got to shift your perspective and that's what's important." Sure. And he absolutely gets away with it. No other choice. But then
the manner in which he does so is when they say, "Well, we're going to automate everything and fire everybody. Are you happy with that?"
Exactly. There's this moment in there where they start unraveling the reality of the situation. And he says, they say, "Well, with modern times, we have a lights off system, which is the lights turn on. We don't need lights. There's nobody here. Less staff. You don't have to use your stick on the paper anymore. Everything's digitalized. We just need you to be there." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, cool, sure, whatever." He's like, I'm at peace with that in his mind, which he's not. Now, this is when...
Is he not, though? Hang on, wait. Is he not, though? To my mind, he's fully at peace with that. To my mind, he's like, there was a moment in his life, maybe, during the first round of firings, 13 months, 2 years ago, where he was, like, standing up for the workers. And at this stage, he's murdering the workers. He doesn't care anymore who else has a job.
Yeah. Well, there's this one thing at the end of the movie that makes me believe he's not okay with it. And I'll tell you in a second. The cops come in, and this is a scene I had to watch a couple times because it's exposition dump a bit, kind of like closing the movie dump at a bit. The cops come back, and they kind of say, "Oh, by the way, this is what happened. Number one and number two had a rivalry of some sorts in Daejeon, and they weren't fans of each other." Oh, really? That's kind of like that's great. Yeah, well, get this. Number one killed number two and fled, basically. And we corroborated this with his wife, who says he had a gun. And of course, we know the wife killed him, but she kind of goes, "Oh my God." She uses her theater and she's like overly dramatic. And she says, "Maybe he had a gun. I'm sure he did." Oh, and the police guys goes, "Why did you not answer that question faster?" And she's like, "Well, when you have a gun, you're supposed to register it. He didn't register it," which is perfect. It's a great answer. So yeah, that wraps up really nicely for Mansu. Well done, buddy.
It gives me big American Psycho flashbacks for everything to just wrap up perfectly in a little bow.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to worry about the fact that he's a mass murderer now.
No.
He can just walk away.
Or that he'd left any DNA anywhere or any of that. Nope. None of that.
Everything's just kind of fine.
Everything's dandy. So then we have this kind of like rose tinted glasses view of everything. He's got the jobs, the dogs are back, and then the girl plays cello. We didn't mention the girl at all, actually, but they have a daughter who's on the spectrum, it seems, and she can only repeat what she's heard people say, which leads to like some funny moments. But she's traumatized when the dogs leave, and there's this kind of background story of her being super gifted, but they don't know about it because they've never been able to like hear her play, and they're scared that they're never going to be able to hear her play. And her independence as a adult later on in her life depends on her being an amazing cello player. And then at the end, she plays for the dogs, and the mother kind of sits on the ground and listens, and it's a nice scene. What did you think of that?
Something I'd never considered until you just said that she can only repeat what she's heard, because that's again reflective of him, that he has been told that a man has to provide and a man has to be the man of the house.
Yeah.
And he's only capable of repeating what he's heard. He's not capable of accepting a new reality based on his wife having more sensible plans than him.
The same way the girl can't accept the reality of the dogs not being here. She cries the whole movie. Like, she's like not okay. She's really not okay. But the dogs come back, and let me tell you how annoyed I was that those wet dogs, went into the house and up the stairs and in the bedroom, leaving so much mud on that beautiful parquet floor. That would not run in my house. That would not go. Nope.
Dogs are wonderful. There's nothing better than the smell of a wet dog. They're good boys, and they're allowed to go sleep on the bed.
I have a dog, and I wash her more than your average person washes their dog, I think, because I cannot deal with the wet dog smell. So yeah, he has a job. Dogs are back. She's a genius, and oh yeah, so this is one thing I caught this time that I loved during the movie. She's drawing these weird. You see it in the poster. There's a version of the poster with these in the background. These weird kind of symbols that mean nothing to you or to me. Turns out they're partitions. She's writing music in her own language, just solidifying the idea that she's a genius. Because at the end, she's playing cello based on her drawings, and she's like leafing through them as she's playing. Cool little detail, right? That's kind of the end of the movie. Well, kind of. I should actually no. Sorry. He goes back to work, back in traffic. It doesn't look ideal. He's stuck between all these trucks, and there's wood. There's these trucks bringing wood into the paper factory, but he's happy about it. And then amazing music at this point, which I'll bring up in a bit. Also, the music. But he's in this sad AI factory, basically. And this is a direct juxtaposition with the scene at the beginning where he's in the factory and he's helping everybody. He's checking on everybody. He's giving water to his colleagues, and he's being really friendly with everybody. He's lost himself completely, because he enters this factory, and the first thing he does is he yells, like in success. Like, I've made it. It was all worth it. And he brings with him a stick. And this stick is in the greenhouse, and it's the stick he hits the paper with to check that the paper is in good condition. And that is the element for me that is he knows that he doesn't need to do this, but it's his attachment and his part of him not accepting it. Or maybe it's just cozy for him to do the movements that he did at the beginning when this wasn't the reality.
Without others. Alone, he does that.
Alone, he does
that. At no point is he trying to bring other people into this situation. He's not concerned over. He's not concerned. In fact, he's delighted that he's working in this AI factory. Nothing but robots. As long as he gets to hit the paper, that's all that matters.
But it's not such a positive ending from the audience perspective, because he turns on the lights in this no light factory, and as he's walking about so he's kind of injecting humanity with the light. And then as he's walking about the factory, the last scenes is the lights slowly turning off while the robots are doing their job. And that's just kind of the sad reality of these days. I guess it's kind of talking about the potential AI replacement, right? And in a few, like, maybe it'll happen. I don't know. I have thoughts, but I don't know. But in this reality, it is happening, and it's sad.
I mean, something that I find interesting about the AI conversation is that it's entered mainstream consciousness now when it's threatening white collar jobs, but automation has been threatening blue collar jobs for 40 years, and then nobody cared. When it was affecting working class, automations kick people out of factories for a very, very, very long time.
Interesting.
And it's not been something to clutch pearls over until it comes for artists' jobs.
Okay, that was a really good take. Thank you. And then get this, we get the closing shots, which are of the machines, right, cutting the wood, and they're bulldozing this forest, basically. Now, do you think, I'm going to ask you a quick quiz here. Do you think Park Chan-wook went to film that? Or do you think he found other means to get that footage?
I don't think he's the kind of guy to use a B team. I think he takes it all himself.
I get that. This is stock footage.
What?
It's stock footage he found on the internet. Now, I know, right? I know. I was super shocked by this. So this whole, like, the ending scene where you see the wood being taken, like, cut at the trees, basically, was stock footage that he found. And he's like, good enough, which is hilarious considering he'll spend months finding a house and actually renovating himself. But the closing statement of his movie was filmed by someone else is insane. But get this, he used CGI to scrub the people out of the footage because there were people walking around the trees and all that and doing the machinery originally. But he scrubbed that all out to kind of make this point of machines doing the jobs, I think. Something along those lines.
Okay. So I often wonder when something is being done that is thematically in service of a film, but is not actually present in the final product.
Yeah.
Does that get credit? So, for example, the thing that you just described, the shot that he has created through that is in the final product. But the fact that he has scrubbed humans out of it is something that you'll only know if you go and read that. There's no way that you would notice that on a viewing as an average audience member, or even as a really keyed in audience member.
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to pick up on the fact that he's done that.
Yeah.
So is that something which is him commenting on the themes of worker replacement and larger industry having an apathetic disinterest in the humans who are actually doing the work? Or is that him parroting the exact problems that he is highlighting within his own film?
Yeah. I'm not too sure about that one.
I would argue the latter. I would argue that's him doing exactly what he is criticizing the film of, and then saying, well, it's thematic, it's part of what I'm saying, but then not cluing the audience into it.
Okay. Yeah. It's effective. I like the ending a lot. I think the ending is actually a really nice kind of closing of the movie itself. Yeah, I really like that ending. And it's
the actual physicality of it that's being taken away. I definitely like the arc that is concluded with the first round of firings being more based in like American interventionism, and I think that's the first set of firings aren't specifically to automate everything. It's because an American company's taken over and they're firing everybody so that they can cut down on staff. Whereas then the latter round of firings are this kind of AI automation approach of replacing everybody with robots, and it feels like a move from book being written in 97. That's probably the major threat at that time would have been.
He added the AI stuff.
Sort of the globalists.
It's not in the. It's.
Yeah, I could imagine.
I also believe when you look at the movie again, well, you think about the movie, for me, it's a warning about people who say, I have no other choice. It's a warning about the way people go about their life saying there's no other choice. Everybody in this movie who said there's no other choice had another choice, I think. And that starts with the American industrialist at the beginning who has no other choice but to cut people. I don't think that there is another way. You don't have to kill people, obviously. And yeah, there are other choices at all times, and your choice might not be the right choice.
Agreed.
So that's the movie. We took an hour and a half, but yeah, that's the movie.
Yeah, as long as the movie took, that's the movie.
Like an hour, another an hour and 20, I guess, to go for it to be that long. But yeah, it's the movie, no other choice. Really good. So there's a couple more things I want to go through right here. Who gets the best performance in your opinion in the movie?
I mean, Mansu's actor, Lee Byung-hun, is
Lee
going to get a
Byung-hun.
lot of plaudits, which is fair enough. Ri-won, his daughter, is actually phenomenal in that film. I don't know if she is autistic herself, but she is pitch perfect for that character. For such a small role, that could otherwise be seen as a little bit of a plot device rather than a lived-in person.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll go with Son Hee Jin, who plays Miri, the wife. I think she's.
You're all about the ride or die.
Well, I think she's killer. I think she's killer in every scene. She has to cry in some scenes. She has to be happy. She has to be loving. She has to be supportive. She has to show pain. I think she's just amazing. I thought whenever she was on screen, I thought her emotions were right there, and it was easy for me to absorb them. So that's was the performance. I'll give a shout out also to Young Hye Ran, who plays Ara, which is the wife of number one. She's the poet, the theater lady. I thought she's just so over the top, so dramatic, so fun to watch.
For your favorite scene in the film, the triple hander of that initial kill.
Yeah. And you're right that Lee Byung-hun is going to get a lot of love for this performance. That makes a lot of sense. So we're just going for like the less obvious ones, I guess. Is there any behind the scenes department that you'd like to shout out for the movie?
I mean, everybody's going to say cinematography because of the way that it's shot, and they're right to do so. But it's the editing that brings more to it. I know those two must have worked really, really hand in glove to achieve some of those transitions, but that's where you see some of the really unique stuff that you've never seen in a film before.
Well, I wonder. I interviewed the guy. I interviewed the editor for Parasite, and he was telling me that in Korea they do things a bit differently with the editing, where they go to wherever the movie's happening, wherever the movie's filmed during filming, during production, and they will edit the dailies every day, and they will bring them back to the director the next day to show, based on the storyboard, how is the editing looking. So they're editing as they go, and then of course they're going to do a whole pass. But compared to in Europe, where they might not do that, or in America where they don't do that, they dailies and then they'll edit later. I wonder if that was also the case on this movie.
I could see how that would help, but presumably you're talking about momentary editing there rather than the structural, and it's the structural that's really impressive, where you're talking about scene to scene. Within any given daily, it's going to likely be the same scene or comparable.
Yeah, I think they would edit a scene probably. At a time. Yeah, they would edit a scene together, I think.
And yet it's those transitions in between scenes that is where it really shines.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they will work very closely with shot choices and they
usually storyboard quite heavily over there, like really. They don't do. It's not like a Paul Thomas Anderson where it's like, we'll see what happens, but they kind of make it up as they go along sometimes. Yeah, so I'll go with sound. I thought the song, as a song choice, I think the song choices in this movie were really fun, really entertaining, but also really emotive. So I really, really like that. If you like this, watch this. Okay, I'll just go with, like, if you like, I'd go probably Decision to Leave. I think that was pretty good. But also Parasite. But who hasn't watched Parasite? So
everybody.
I think any of his other movies would be a good shout at this point, which is a boring answer, but here we go.
I'd say the use of the house. We mentioned it before briefly in with the Netflix thing, but Sentimental Value has a similar focus on the emotional importance that you put on non-living items, on inanimate objects, specifically a house.
Yeah.
Okay. Jesus, in a very different way. In an extremely different way.
Yeah, but the house means everything to the wife in that movie. Like, it means everything. So, you're right.
Absolutely.
That's great. Okay, watch it at the cinema, rent it on VOD, or wait for streaming. You know my answer on this one. Go watch it at the cinema. It's going to be hard to find movies that I'm not going to say that.
That's going to be your stock answer, is just everything, go out, see it.
Well, maybe we'll do movies that are not that great sometimes. Who knows?
We'll talk about Syrup one day.
Hey, there it is. So,
on the mention of which, brief detail. Actually, no, I'll answer this before I detour.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if this is necessarily has to be a cinema one.
Oh my God.
I know. It is. It's got the humor of it is going to play well in a long room. The length of it is going to hold really well. But it's also so pulpy and entertaining that it's not like you're going to split it into multiple parts. It's not going to be an Irishman situation where you're splitting it up because you just can't sit through it all in one go. It's got that 2 hour 20 or so, you burn through it very quickly. It feels like 90 minutes in spite of the pacing issues that the film has on the whole.
I think the cinema will help folk like keep things in mind. Like there's a lot of moving parts to this movie in my opinion, more than needs to actually happen. He's trying to cram a lot. So that's why I'd say cinema. And it's only cuz my phone is like glued to my hand most days. So when I think of anything I watch at home, like I have to put my phone into a cupboard very far away.
But this is going to hold. This is going to hold you. This is going to sort of keep you viewing as we're sort of moving from one murder to the next.
Yeah. So what's your answer? VOD?
I'm saying streaming. Wait until it'll show up on Netflix.
Don't spend any money whatsoever. Okay, gotcha. Is this movie shelf worthy? I think it is, but also because of the pedigree of the director, I will buy this. Will I buy the steelbook? I'm not sure, but they're going to release a really nice that cover, the pot over the head. It's going to look really good on that shelf.
That's what I was thinking of. The box art is going to look lovely.
Absolutely.
But while we're on, is it shelf worthy? Is it Best International Film nomination worthy? I was looking through
nomination.
For those who aren't nominate. Well, I saw. Okay, so you say this. Here's something interesting that I found out while having a look through the shortlist for Best International Film this year.
Yeah.
Hopefully, this comes out before the nominations, so this is not immediately cut.
Oh.
5 films and potentially 5 nominated films are all handled by Neon this year.
Yeah.
So No Other Choice, Sentimental Value, The Secret Agent, It Was Just an Accident, and Sirat are all Neon.
Yeah. And they'll all be nominated.
We don't talk. Well, no, I don't think that they will, because every different studio is going to be running their own For Your Consideration campaigns. I recognize that a couple of those, like Sentimental Value and It Was Just an Accident, are sort of Neon don't have to put a huge amount of money. Yeah, absolutely. But they definitely do have to put a lot of money into making them win when there are other people sort of snapping at the heels, like The Voice of Him Rajab, which has some politics behind it, which is likely to get some interest. So it's not like they can just completely stop those FYCs. And so I don't think they're going to be able to get 5. I don't think they're going to be able to get 4 nominations out of that. I think you're going to have some massive misses this year as a result of 5 of them being handled by the same distribution agency or by the same production company. And I reckon No Other Choice is one of them. I'm going to go out on a limb and say No Other Choice doesn't get a nomination.
Okay. Wow. That's super interesting. Okay. Well, we'll see. I guess we'll see. Is there any are there any other bangers that are not Neon? The Voice of Hind Rajab, obviously, but can you remind me of a few?
Yeah, so if I was to go for another one other than Voice of Hind Rajab that would sort of sneak in there and knock a couple of these out, I'd probably say The President's Cake might go for it, which is an Iraqi film about the making of a cake for Saddam Hussein, which I think is going to make it partially because it's good, but partially because it's got a weird name and a concept, and so it's likely to catch voters' attention in the same way that Lunana Yak in the Classroom did so well. Seeming not that isn't a good film too, but with the name being so odd and with Bhutan being an unusual country to have a film nominated from, it seems to support its nomination. I think The President's Cake is going to get a Lunana nom.
When will we find out?
22nd of January.
Okay, we'll know by then. That's cool. All right, and then we've got post-credit segment to talk about any other movie you've watched since the last episode and want to highlight. Is there anything you've watched recently you want to highlight?
What was the last thing I watched? Oh, goodness, I watched Paddington again recently. Shout out to the Paddington fans. Shout out to the real people who know Paddington 1 is better than Paddington 2.
Well, I was just going to ask you, which one do I start with? Because you can't talk about Paddington without people telling you, second is better than the first one. Why should I start with the first one? Can I start with the first one? I've never seen them.
Definitely. Yeah, they're both worth a look. They're absolutely worth a look. And as you say, Paddington 2 gets a huge amount of love, as well it should. I won't go into too much spoilers if you've not seen them. Not that they're particularly spoiler-heavy films. But the first one is so thematically on point throughout. It so constantly has this kind of through line about the British immigrant experience or the immigration to Britain experience, in spite of being a kid's film. And it's so rounded in that sense, in a way that the second one isn't. That's why I love the first one more.
Okay.
But they're definitely both worth a look.
Yeah.
Hugh Grant's having a lot of fun in the second one.
Double feature. Gotcha.
Double feature. Oh, that's a lovely double feature.
So,
what did you see recently?
Well, I've seen a few things. All the Star Trek movies that were released, all the Hunger Games movies, but I don't want to give a shout out to those, although I did enjoy Star Trek. I would say A Die My Love recently was really good. Well,
that's a fun one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a fun one. I think I'm overselling it here. I don't know if it's very good. I know that her performance, Jennifer Lawrence's performance, is, in my opinion, very good. And I think she's pulling a lot from like her own experiences being a new mom and how that was for her, and like on a, I was going to say hormonal level, no, but like more like on an inside level, like a how you feel level, like a beast kind of you kind of feeling. What does it mean to be a woman? That kind of thing.
It's very expressionist, isn't it? In
Yeah.
terms of, yeah, sort of going for those emotional truths rather than anything literal. I do love, I know we've talked about this before, but I do love how that film is being described as Jennifer Lawrence goes crazy because she can't handle motherhood, as if Robert Pattinson bringing a random rabid dog home and then like bundling his wife into the car physically and leaving the baby in the house. Yeah, he's handling it. He's totally fine.
Yeah, they're not. You don't have much love for both of them, in my opinion. They're very dirty. That's what I'll say, which I didn't enjoy. Very messy. Although, who am I to talk right now? But yeah, no, it's. I really enjoyed her performance. I thought it was pretty good. What's your letterbox rating actually for No Other Choice? Forgot to ask you.
If I was to letterbox rating No Other Choice,
did you not?
I'd give it I think I'd give it a really, really solid 3 stars. And that's going to sound harsh. That's going to sound extremely harsh. I'm generally fairly harsh in ratings. I have a lot of problems with it. As much as I love so much about it, I do think that it is a little bit too on the nose with a lot of what it's talking about.
Okay.
I do think that some elements of it don't cohere in quite the way that it could. Things like the alcoholic angle.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have the sort of moral complexity that something like the Parasite comparisons just write themselves. They're right there, and that's probably one of the issues I have. I maybe need to rewatch it with a completely clear mind and try to take it completely as it is.
Is your take here? Is your take here like, why watch this? Watch Parasite. Just watch Parasite because it's better.
Absolutely.
Okay, you heard it here. All right, cool. Outro. Yeah. So
wait, hang on. What's your Letterboxd rating?
Oh shit, 4.5 twice. I nearly gave it 5,
wow.
But I do think it has a few issues. Yeah, but I find it very cozy. I love these movies that just keep me on my tippy toes, and they're so interesting. And I guess I find them very artistic in not a boring way. Does that make sense? Like, you can watch High Life by Claire Denis and be like, wow, this is very artsy, and it's very drawn out and long, but wow, it's artsy. I would say that No Other Choice is extremely artsy, and it's full of like inventive things and inventive ways to hold the camera, do the shots, the song choice, everything. But it's very dynamic, and I feel cultured. I like it.
The mention of inventive things, it's worth a quick shout out to whoever's running the marketing campaign for No Other Choice. I'm not sure how much of this you've seen, but they recently invited the CEO of every Fortune 500 company to a screening of the film just to dunk on them over
was that for No Other Choice
in their workers.
Oh
that was
God,
No Other Choice.
Yeah. Genius.
They've set up a website called nootherjob.com with the tagline of, do you hate your job? File a complaint anonymously. And it's just a website of people ragging on about their jobs and talking about what they hate about them.
I love. That's good marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Power to the people. That's awesome. Okay, Mark, where can people find you?
People find me usually at Rambling Cinema over Instagram. It'll be too late for the film I've got coming up this week by the time that this is edited. That's usually me.
Do you not have a date for the other one yet?
Almost certainly. First Tuesday of every month at Carousel is usually where we're at.
First Tuesday.
And hopefully at other places, but we will plan.
All right, cool. I'm Sebastian. Run Dead Duck. Dead Duck. We're screening The Handmaiden on the 27th of February, which is, 27th of January, which is really close to when this is releasing. So probably over by now. But yeah, we're going to be looking at that. Fantastic movie by Park Chan-wook. And I think it'll be a really interesting conversation, actually, to after watching this, and I'm going to watch it again when it comes out on the 23rd, I believe, and then going to see The Handmaiden and see which movie I prefer. I think it's going to be The Handmaiden.
It's very, very few things are going to, I'm going to enjoy more than The Handmaiden.
Yeah, it's really good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark. And this was episode 1 of the Dead Duck Film Club podcast. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.